Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to my first Maya tutorial. Now, I've been meaning to do this for quite a while, uh, and I've finally gotten around to getting it all ready and deciding to do it. So, this tutorial will be about creating a scene with a Pokeball from Pokemon. If you didn't know what a Pokeball was, which would be kind of strange, but anyway. So I'm going to make this pretty simple so beginners can kind of know how to do it, and I'm going to pretty much explain what I'm doing throughout the tutorial. Hopefully it won't take too long, but you never know. Things happen. uh, so I've been teaching myself Maya for about 3 to 5 years on and off, but only recently really gotten into it. So here we are in Maya 2013. Alright, so let's just get straight into it. Now to model a Pokeball, it's a pretty simple process. It doesn't really involve much, so usually I start out with a sphere. So this is my custom shelf right here. So you can create your own shelves in Maya. Usually you would use the polygon shelf, probably. Or you can, alternatively, you can go create polygon primitive and then any one of these shapes, so it would be a sphere, just there. But I like to draw it on. So go back to my custom shelf here, which has got basically just a collection of the tools I use the most. So we select a sphere, and we'll drag it out here. And by default, Maya will be in wireframe mode, so you just hit the 5 key on your keyboard, and you get a smooth shaded view, just here. Okay, so at the moment you can see it's a bit, it's not perfectly round because it's just a collection of faces. So for curved objects, I usually like to subdivide it. So basically you can hit the keys 1, 2, or 3 for the different levels of subdivision. So 1 is just no smoothing. 2 will smooth it, but you'll still see the actual polygon shape. And 3, it'll be fully smooth. As you can see, well, not always. Depends how much geometry you have, but we'll get into that. Alright, so with 1 selected, usually Pokeball I'm not really basing on any reference here, it's just what I remember a Pokeball to look like, pretty much. So let's just grab, well first, actually, I'm going to add some more geometry here first. So if we come and use the split selected edge ring, which is actually also under here as insert edge loop tool. I should probably change the description of that, but I will. So here, and basically we can add in extra edges. So probably around there, I reckon, and around there. I'm just placing them by hand. No need to be fully accurate for something like this. So we'll grab the faces. So as you can see, I just selected the entire ring. So you can just click on a face, and if you hold shift, as in you're selecting, you can select multiple things, but if you hold shift and double click on the next one, it'll select the entire ring of faces. And I can do the same here for the second face ring. Alright, so now what we want to do is create an extrusion, a kind of a dip in the geometry to create the center ring of the Pokeball, to kind of separate the red and white parts of the Pokeball if you're like me and prefer the original Pokemon to everything else. Can't believe I'm talking about Pokemon on my YouTube channel, but oh well. So, to extrude, you can usually go up to Edit Mesh, make sure you're under the polygons part in here. Edit Mesh, Extrude, or if you're like me, you like stuff to be right there, so you can just use the Extrude on your shelf. So after you click that, you get this funny little controller, or handles, and what we can do is we can just move that in. like that, like so. As you can see, we've now got an indent, just here, maybe a bit more. So, and yeah, to get back into normal mode, you just go to object mode. You hold down right click. I actually forgot to say that. Damn it! I've already messed up the tutorial. Oh well. So hold down right click to select the faces in the first place. Hold down right click and go to face and let go. So then you can select faces, just like I was, and I should have told you then. But to go back, we just choose object mode. That's the easy way to do it. Okay. So right now we've got this sphere with an indent, and if I hit 3 to subdivide it, you'll see it smooths it all out, but it even smooths the edges, which we kind of don't want. We want a not perfectly sharp edge, but we want a sharper edge than this. But first, we have to lay the groundwork for the PokeBall button, which I'm going to make on this side, because that's roughly, I'm not going to be super accurate, but I'm just going to move that so it's on this axis. There we go. Alright. So, the way I like to do it is pretty simple. Holding down right click again, and we're choosing vertexes this time. So vertexes are the little points on the surface. So let's just select, using shift, select these ones here, and it's actually just started raining outside. Fun fact. Alright, so we've selected these, and basically let's just create the indent for the button. I'm just going to go scale it up. So this is your scale tool here, that's your move tool, that's your rotate tool, by the way. Man, I'm bad at these tutorials. Alright, so just going to go there and look on from the side to get a idea of the curve of the circle. About there is fine. Alright, so now we've got this kind of indent right here, and if we smooth it, we get like that. But I think we need a bit more, so I'm going to reselect these vertices, but also the one in the next ring of them. Sorry, I'm having a bit of trouble selecting because the screen recording software makes my mouse flicker. Okay, let's scale this up a bit more. Probably about to there, I reckon. And let's move it back into place so that we preserve the curve. So now if I go and smooth it, as you can see, we still get a nice curve. We also get a nice dip. Alright. So, now that we've got that done, we're going to insert some edge loops to kind of sharpen up the curved edge. So, what we want to do, at the moment it's like, it's pretty smooth. So, in order to do that, what we'll do is we'll come in here and place an edge there, and instantly, if I smooth it, you can see the edge is much more defined already. So that's basically how you can sharpen subdivided surfaces. You don't model everything like this, only some things. Some things you can just model without smoothing, some things you might have to model with some smoothing, or with an actual subdiv surface, or even some nerve surfaces for really smooth stuff sometimes. Depends really what you're comfortable with using. Personally, I prefer to always start off with polygons. So, what I'll do is I'll come in here, add the more edge loops here, and if I smooth it out, we've already got quite a nice surface going. Now I also want to sharpen up the inner curves, surfaces, and that's looking pretty nice right there. Okay, if I go back into object mode, as you can see, we've got a really nice defined edge here. Now, you can see some slight, you know, resolution problems here, but we'll get into that in another tutorial because that's a whole other ballpark. That's just the result of, like, this sphere is pretty low resolution. So, okay. After we've got this done, we'll go ahead and create. So that's that's basically the main shape completed. Pokeballs are really simple to do. So let's just go and create a cylinder here. You can also go polygon, create polygons cylinder, or you can go down here. So let's just create a nice little cylinder here. Drag it up. Alright, so we need to rotate the X. Let's rotate it by 90 over here. Alright, so let's scale that probably about to there, and bring it out. Okay. So let's go and select all these faces to create the button for the Pokeball, which again is really simple. So once we've selected all these surfaces by holding Shift, well, first I actually want to move it out a bit in line with the sphere, and we're going to extrude it. So I reckon probably about there. Extrude again. Now, you don't have to keep clicking on extrude, you can actually click G on your keyboard to repeat the action that you just did. So I can just hit G and it re-extrudes it again. So extruding's one of the ways you can create some detail or add some detail to surfaces. One of the easy ways, although I wouldn't recommend to extrude too much because it does quite often mess up all the UVs and stuff. But yeah, so that's the basic shape of the button there, and it's quite, so what we want to do is smooth it, but first we'll add in some edge loops, because if I smooth it right now it's really smooth. So you can actually add them in the smooth view to get an idea instantly of what you're getting. So I'm just basically going through and putting in support edge loops. Oh, you won't be able to put one on there yet. Alright, I'll put one there. And about there. So now what we have is a Pokeball button, as you can see. Nice and smooth. Alright. Now, one of the main things that a lot of people don't do when they're modeling, this isn't only in Maya, or Maya, as you're supposed to say it. Alright. Well, first things first. Open the outliner by going down here and clicking on the perspective outliner view. So it just adds the outliner. This is a list of every object in your scene, and shader groups actually, or light groups, sorry. So, and it's just started raining harder. Anyway, we'll name this sphere here by double clicking on it. Always name all of your objects, because otherwise it can get really messy when you get a complex scene. For a scene like this it's pretty simple, but especially if you're handing it off to someone else, you really want people to be able to read your scene, kind of thing. Alright. So that's basically the modeling part of the Pokeball finished. Whoop, I have a mail from Unity. Good to know. Anyway, and I think we'll include the rendering in this video. I'll just do it all in one. Should be fine. Alright, so we'll grab the Pokeball here, and now what we want is to have 3 different materials on the Pokeball. We want a red material on top, a white material on bottom, and a black material through the center in the indent. Now, it's one object, so usually you might be used to, if you've got the basics of Maya ready, is to just making a separate material for each separate object. But you can also apply multiple materials to the same object. The way I like to do it, I don't deal in textures that much. I usually try to use procedural textures and shaders for everything. So I know like the textures can be really good for certain like realistic scenes, but generally I like to model everything with shaders in mind. So let's go into faces mode. Let's go down here to the foreview, which just lets me see the different views. So let's drag and select all of these faces, just here. Yep. All of these faces just there. And we'll also hold down Shift and select all of these faces and all of these faces. Just make sure you've got everything selected, so just add faces you don't have. And I'm actually going to leave a little bevel of black in the center. So now we've got that selected, we'll assign a new material. So I usually like to stick to the mental ray materials because I use mental ray to render everything. MIA material X is my preferred base material to create other materials from when you're dealing with normal surfaces, hard surfaces. So I'll create that. Should open the attribute editor, and of course it's sometimes it doesn't open it up straight away because Maya can be buggy at sometimes. So what we want to do is come up here to the hypershade. I have it in my bar. You can also go Window, Rendering Editors, Hypershade, but I have it right here. So let's open that. Hypershade basically has a list of all your materials. You can create new materials, but this is your materials in your scene. So as you can see, we have the MIA material X1. So let's click on that, and all the options will come up here in the side. So let's name it. Good practice to name all your materials. So let's go PokeBall red matte for material and press enter. Oop. Let's rename it. Forgot the O. Typical. And let's rename it. So now it's called PokeBall. So we know. I say okay. So let's basically render this as a red, not quite fully red. Now usually you'd go for shiny, glossy, like sharp reflections, but this time I reckon, usually I go for sharp in a Pokeball. This time I reckon let's set the reflectivity to maybe 0.9, and the glossiness, which is the blurriness of the reflection, the lower it is, the more blurred the reflection is, so more like plastic. Let's go to 0.7, and basically we want to put the samples up to 16 for the preview, and we're going to bump that right up when we do the final render. So if we come down here, refraction doesn't really apply to us because it's not transparent. Now come down here to BIDF, which is basically to do with the angle of the camera to the reflection. A lot of objects, when they're facing you, the angles of the angle of the faces that are facing you have less reflection than the faces that aren't, that are facing away from you. I just like to bump this up a bit to maybe 0.35, I reckon. Should be alright. Now let's bump, yep, that should be alright. All good. So, we've created our Pokeball red matte. Now, let's go in and select the bottom faces. I'm sorry if you can hear rain in the background, but there's not really much I can do about that. Select those, and rotate around, and because we're missing these ones every time. Now let's apply another new material. Another MIA material X. This time it worked and went to the right tab. Let's name this PokeBall. White, matte. Easy enough. And let's bump that to white. Pretty simple. Now, reflectivity, again, we'll put to 0.9. Glossiness, 0.7. And samples to 16 for the preview. Samples is basically the quality of the blurriness. If the lower it is, the more grainy the reflection will be. Alright, so now we've got that already. Now let's go into... Now the easy way, usually you'd be like, oh no, I have to select all the faces because it's curved, to apply a black material to the middle. But what we can do is we can go into Hypershade. Well, actually before, let's add a new material for the button. So assign new material again. And my material X. Now this one, let's name PokeBall button matte. And let's have a almost black material with low reflection, about 0.28. And the glossiness, let's go 0.3. Should be nice. And let's just put the glossy samples to 32 because it's so glossy. Oh, sorry. And I'm being an idiot again. This is for the button, of course. How silly of me. Let's put that to white. And that should be quite nice. The middle's black. Alright. So, what we can do is we come in here, because the default objects always assign the default material, which will be Lambert 1 in your case. So we can actually hold down right click on that in the Hypershade and go select objects in initial shading group. And that'll just select the faces that you haven't added the material to yet, as you can see up here. So basically I can just go assign new material, MIA material X, and let's name this PokeBall middle matte. So let's go down to a almost black again, reflectivity to 0.35, glossiness to 0.45. Or maybe actually 0.3. That looks better in the preview. Samples, let's go to 32. Alright. So now that we've kind of textured it back, let's go back to our old view. I like to group them, so press Ctrl G and then type PokeBall. So basically that allows me to move it around as one object, even though it's only two objects, not very many, but when... Sorry about that, had a slight glitch with the recorder was recording to my SSD for some weird reason when I told it not to. But now it is not, so everything is good. The world will not end, and we can continue finishing this tutorial. Alright, so we've got a PokeBall here. I'm going to create a basic scene to render it in with. So let's grab the PokeBall group, and let's move it probably into position. So about there. Let's grab a simple plane, probably about that big. Really simple here. Let's assign a... Oh, let's actually leave it as Lambert. This is just really basics. Okay. In actual fact, I will make it. I'll make it into a simple table. Let's extrude it down. Oh, maybe not. Definitely not that far. Probably about to there. Let's add some edge loops. Yep, looking good. Select these four faces and extrude down. Got an ultra simple table. Now, I'm not going to smooth this table, but we can use a bevel to give it a nice edge. If we select the edge all around, we can usually come up to Edit Mesh and Bevel. I like to just use my shortcut here, and that gave me a pretty nice result. And looks like I accidentally selected one of the edges, but oh well, because this is just a super simple scene. Alright, now that that's created, maybe scale this a bit. Alright, got that. Maybe not. Maybe move that back a bit. Yeah, about there. Don't have to be perfect. Alright, so basically, let's grab a sphere. Now I'm going to do some image-based lighting for this tutorial, but you can just light it without this. But this is what I like to do for global illumination, to get a nice smoothing light and shadows that looks really nice, usually. So basically I like to create a sphere in all my scenes anyway, usually just with a certain incandescence to it, the material on it, to create a nice background. But this time I'll be using an actual spherical reflection map to get some nice glossy reflections on the PokeBall. So after I've created the sphere, first thing I want to do is I don't want it to cast shadows and receive shadows. We'll apply a new material to it, just a standard lambert, just like the stock material. Put the color right down, and under incandescence here, let's click on the use texture, and we choose file, open my file. If I go into HDRI, which I've bookmarked here, let's grab this EXR, which I got off the net. So it's a high dynamic range file. Now you won't see anything by default. If I change to the viewport 2.0 renderer, however, once that's changed, yep, and press 6 on my keyboard, I can view textured view, and we've got a nice view of everything around me. Alright, so basically it looks like there's a lot of different light coming through here. Now I could set up lights manually, but if I go into, which I will. So what I'll do is there's going to be a main light source coming from all the way over there. So we'll create a directional light. Okay, let's point that in a general direction from where it's coming from. Alright, a bit down. Let's grab the color. It's going to be a bluish hue. Now I don't want that blue, just slightly blue, because it'll look just fine. The light's intensity, let's put it to about 0.8. And under shadows, we want ray trace shadows. Light angle, we will set to about probably 8. Shadow rays, if you don't set this attribute, your shadows will be incredibly grainy at this light angle. So let's go to about 45 to start off with. Now let's grab this. Now by default, Maya will be on Maya software, but I've set mine to by default to go to Mental Ray. Let's enable color management. Always enable color management. Go to, now by default indirect lighting's turned off. If we go and render this, this is what we'll get at the start. Now there's a lot of things we need to fix about this image. Number one, we're not getting any light bouncing. So if we go into our render options, which that is by the way, under indirect lighting, let's enable final gather. This is what I usually use. Let's put the accuracy down a bit to 40, should be fine. Point interpolation to 40. And let's have one secondary diffuse bounce for some global illumination. Let's re-render that. Just wait for it here. So, now that's a result of the point interpolation, the accuracy. Let's go to 120. And let's just, you can drag out and select a render preview region, render that. Okay, that's looking much better so far. So what I'll do, this is an untested HDR, is I'm going to grab a different HDR right here, one that I know works well, but it's lower resolution. Don't mind. So I think I'll use this one today. This quite nice reflection map. If I re-render that, okay. So now we need to adjust our lights for this scene. We have one main light in this scene, and it's coming from the sun. Alright, let's change that to a yellowish tinge for the sun. Okay. Let's put that down to about 5 light angle. And let's have a look at the render we get now. Alright. So we've got some nice things going on here. It's pretty low res. The main thing that I'm worried about is that I want to face the sunlight. So I'm going to grab it all again. And let's, not the sphere. And let's rotate it around. That should do. I'm not being pretty perfect with this, but oh well. Just render that from that angle. Okay, so that's looking better. Maybe what I'll do with the PokeBall is I will make it not so perfect. Maybe like that. Right, so we're getting some nice highlight reflections on this, but the main thing that I want to get rid of is any fake specularity, which you can't really see because the reflection of the sun. But if I go into the material attributes, back into the hypershade, which I still have minimized down here. If I go into here, go down, scroll down to advanced. It might be closed, so it might be like that. Let's go like that, and put the specular balance down to 0. Because then you get true just the reflections like in real life. So let's do 0, and let's do the same for the PokeBall white. And that should look quite nice now. If I re-render that. So as you can see, we now have a nice blurred reflection. Now, I possibly want to actually blur it a bit more. It's not really blurred that much at all. So if we go back into the material, come down to reflection, go to glossiness, let's go to 0.45 on both. This should help a lot, giving a nice diffused reflection. and you can see there that we're getting a really nice diffuse. Okay, and I actually want to make the button shiny, so let's put the reflection up a bit and the glossiness right up. So let's just render that out. Right, that's looking a bit nicer. The center is looking really good. Really, really good. Alright, so now if we go into the materials, let's just set the glossy samples right up. So let's say 64 for the reflection. Oops, sorry. On both. 64, and on the black especially. Let's go to 64. Let's assign a new material to the table. Let's make it a kind of light brown with a really subtle glossy reflection. So let's go to 32, I reckon. So let's just have a look at what that looks like. Take a bit longer to render, the higher the samples. And that's looking quite nice. We're getting a nice glow from the ball there. Don't mind the really bad quality background, but that's looking quite nice. Alright, so that would be the end of this tutorial pretty much. And you could make duplicates of the PokeBall, make them smaller, different colors, etc. Put them around on the table. You can do whatever you want. But that's all I'm gonna do for this tutorial. And please let me know if I was alright as doing the tutorials. If I was useful to you in any way. But yeah. So I'll see you guys next time. So comment and subscribe if you like this video or any of my other videos. Support is greatly appreciated, and constructive criticism even. But yeah. Alright, I'm gonna go grab a coffee, and I'll see you guys next time.